Often, environmental issues go unnoticed until they pop up on our Instagram or Twitter feeds, alerting us to problems that we would have otherwise not cared about. Hello and welcome, I'm Sadhika Tiwari and you're watching Eco India. And in today's episode, we discover that spreading awareness about these environmental issues is a key step towards finding solutions that can benefit us all. India's Uttarakhand state has been in the headlines for decades. But at the start of this year, it was one of the biggest news stories. Joshimath is sinking, with dramatic consequences for its residents. We head out there to find out why is this happening and what are the lessons here for communities who live in similar such fragile mountains.
It was the 3rd of January 2023 when Durga Lal and his wife first realized that their house was caving in. The house they had built 3 years earlier with a lifetime worth of savings. 14 months earlier, cracks had begun to appear in the walls, but suddenly they ripped dangerously wide apart.
Today we have nowhere to live safely and nothing to eat. There used to be a gap of 1 foot between our house and our neighbors, but their house is leaning on our house now. It is pushing our house, and the walls of my house have started tilting inwards. On that evening, the authorities came and told us the situation was critical. They said, please evacuate immediately and move to another place that the municipality has arranged for your stay.
On that fateful day in January, thousands of people like Durga Lal had to flee from their homes in the Himalayan town of Joshimath. The ground on which the town stood had become unstable. Overnight, deep cracks emerged across buildings, roads, and farmlands. Hundreds of buildings were damaged. Some collapsed and had to be demolished. As news of Joshimath's sinking spread, frantic questions rang out across the country. What was causing the land here to sink or subside so suddenly? And how would it affect locals and the 100 million mainly Hindu tourists who travel here on pilgrimages every year?
This is NTPC's dam.
This is Joshimath-based activist Atul Sati. He points us to a contentious construction project on the Dholi Ganga river that scientists, activists and locals blame for the situation. They allege that in 2009, a boring machine used for the Tapovan Vishnugad hydro project punctured an underground aquifer. That, they say, created a leak from which water had seeped out.
That water is still leaking. This is the same water leakage that dried the aquifer of Joshimath, the town's source of water. Many scientists say and believe this water discharge over the last 10 to 12 years is the main reason behind land subsidence at Joshimath.
Others also blame unplanned construction. Among many problems, it can block the natural flow of water underground. In addition, disturbances caused by heavy infrastructure projects like highways and hydro projects can destabilize an earthquake-prone region like this one. Steep slopes and heavy monsoon rains also make its mountain terrain fragile. But on the 3rd of January, a tipping point was hit when a tunnel built for the dam burst. The dam is being constructed by the NTPC, or National Thermal Power Corporation, a public sector firm that builds electricity projects. We contacted the NTPC for comment on the impact of their construction but received no response. Atul Sati's appeals for accountability have also fallen on deaf ears. He is part of a people's movement called Joshimath Bachao Sangharsh Samiti that is demanding an immediate halt to construction of the hydro project. Many groups are pushing for strict adherence to planning protocols in this terrain and appropriate compensation for losses suffered. After Joshimath's disastrous January, federal and state agencies provided food and accommodation for those affected, but the aid failed to meet people's need. In the long term, many, including Durgalal's family, have since moved back into their damaged and dangerous houses.
वहाँ रहने की तो
There was only a small bed there, only around this size, but I have 4 kids and there are 2 of us, so how could we sleep in that bed? There were many problems like this. If the government really wants to do something for us, then they should shift us somewhere or build a new house for us, or give us options for constructing another house. It's almost rainy season, but if the government wants us to die like this, then okay, we will die. What more can I do?
ठीक है मर ही जाएंगे और इससे ज़्यादा क्या कर सकते हैं.
The scene playing out in Joshimath serves as a warning for other mountain towns developing in this way at this pace. The people speaking out here hope that by doing so they can save both their own homes and those of others facing a similar threat in the future.
Plastic straws are banned in India, and I always forget to carry my metal straw. And what we get usually now are these paper straws because they're mostly inexpensive, but they're probably not always sustainable. And I am not a huge fan of these paper straws anyway because they get like squishy and soggy way before I even finish my drink. But what other alternatives do we have which are sustainable and also inexpensive?
These straws are made from dry coconut leaves. They are alternatives to single-use plastic straws and are 100% biodegradable and chemical-free.
I picked up a few of those leaflets, took it to my apartment, and then I started steaming it. And then I saw that it has its own natural wax. The natural wax of the leaf itself makes it antifungal and hydrophobic. And that's how I started. I thought, why not make straws out of it?
Saji Verghese and his team are aiming to convert this agricultural waste to wealth and eliminate the use of plastic straws.
Plastic causes a lot of problem to cows, goats, people and so on, as it is not biodegradable. It damages our environment, and that is why we were given the training to make these eco straws and doing it.
India produces a large share of the world's coconuts, but in the process, dry coconut leaves mostly go to waste.
So that's another value that we are adding to the entire supply chain. That till now which was considered as a waste, we are now adding value to it, which is increasing the farmer's income. At the same time, it's raw material for a different line of production as well.
The team have adopted a so-called hub and spoke model to produce the straws. Spokes are leaf collection centers and hubs are production centers. At the spokes, leaves collected from farms are washed and cut to the required size. Then they are sent to the production unit where they are machine rolled, giving the first layer of each straw the necessary strength and structure.
And after that comes the long rolling, where two longitudinal strips are stuck opposite to each other. And so that we do with the FDA approved water-based glue. So this completes the straw process.
The final straws are sent to the post-processing unit to be sterilized and packaged. Each straw is priced between 1.2 and 2.5 rupees, or around 2 euro cents depending on the size. These straws can stay in beverages for 3 to 4 hours and have a shelf life of 9 months. Verghese says that these are far better for the environment compared to popular alternatives like paper straws. Above all, the team is proud of the fact that it is women who run the show. There are over 100 female employees for whom rural employment opportunities make a huge difference.
In the beginning, we used to get 2,000 rupees to 2,500 rupees. Now that we are experienced in it and are fast in doing work, we take 4,500 rupees, hoping to get more in the future.
I got married when I was 18. I have never worked anywhere since then. I used to be just at home. As soon as this company opened, I joined. Earlier, I had to ask for anything and everything from my husband, but now it is not the case. I don't ask him for anything. I look after my expenses on my own from the money I have earned, and I'm very happy about it.
The team currently produce 9,000 straws per day across 2 leaf processing centers and 3 straw production centers.
We have inquiries from all the 11 states, coconut growing states of India. So we see a huge possibility to create employment. Our goal is to provide employment to 1,000 women in the next 3 years.
With more and more countries restricting plastic use, the company has already been able to win many customers abroad with its sustainable innovation.
Sometimes what long articles and loud slogans cannot do is done by art. Art has the power to calmly compel us, to think and to deeply move us about issues that we otherwise don't care about, issues like climate change. An international exhibition of artists in Germany puts a spotlight on looming ecological threats and also on the hope we can glean from creativity and innovation.
If you listen carefully, you can hear it, a chorus of household appliances. Syrian performance artist Bazat Sulaiman has created a memorial-like installation out of a pile of electronic waste. The work is currently on display here at the Kunsthalle Mannheim. In an exhibition called 1.5 Degrees, artists from all over the world explore how the climate crisis is affecting our lives.
We see ourselves confronted by a situation where the lifestyle that we humans nurture and that has accelerated over the last few decades has led us into a crisis. And at this time, we think it's important to address this topic, while also showing that art is an important medium for dealing with this question, and one that can inspire us to reflect.
Emerson Pontes is an artist, a biologist, and an educator. In his performances, his alter ego Uyura Sodoma draws attention to the destruction of his homeland, the Brazilian Amazon. He slips into the role of a plant-human hybrid, shapeshifting in different situations. Performance artist Thomas Kleiner has dedicated his work to new forms of movement, especially in the air. He works with discarded parachutes.
Alles gerät in Bewegung, Klimawandel.
Everything is moving. Climate change means that everything has to shift. And then came the question, is there perhaps the possibility of plants moving in new ways? And now the project Cross-Species Test Flights is particularly focused on this moment of floating. For example, I've tried to record the movements of jellyfish, or something like the constellation of flying objects with plants, so that they become a new living entity.
A not-so-simple approach, perhaps. Thomas Kleiner plans to be on site frequently for the duration of the exhibition. The visitors are his observers.
It's becoming more and more important for us humans to make use of nature as a wind that always blows in order to simply live more ecologically in this world, to make our ecological footprint a little smaller.
For the curator, these are especially important exhibits. Images by the German-Austrian artist Anselm Kiefer. One picture shows the historical observatory in the Indian city of Jaipur. The artist has replaced its staircase with a ladder that seems to lead directly into the heavens.
In the night sky, you see many white dots, stars, and he pinpoints these stars with coordinates from NASA. So it's actually a mixture, on the one hand, of our technological westernized knowledge, and on the other hand, of the old tradition of stargazing, as it was cultivated in India, in the city of Jaipur. It has an insanely rich cultural history.
Next to it are drawings by Eva Gentner. The abundance of satellites and space debris now orbiting our planet has inspired the artist to create entirely new constellations. One of the highlights of the exhibition is the crocheted coral reef by Australian twin sisters Margaret and Christine Wertheim. But the theme is not the dead atolls of their homeland. Through an appeal, they found 4,000 crocheting comrades in arms to help them create this coral reef. The message? Climate change mitigation is a task that, like this reef, can only be mastered together.
I think it's often a fine line between art and the artificial, and that it's only when the beauty of nature has almost disappeared that we begin to recreate it artificially, and that's kind of crazy.
You have to pull out all the stops to raise awareness. And maybe that's also a way to cope with it yourself, to process what has gone wrong in the course of many decades and what is still going wrong today.
Like the use of fossil fuels. In his film screening at the exhibition, Julian Charrier displays fireworks running in reverse over an oil rig. Fossil fuel that humankind has brought to the surface, banished back to the Earth's interior. If only it were that simple.
Loved by tourists is often code for overcrowded commercialized destinations that tourists leave behind littered with trash. The pressures of tourism are especially harsh for ecologically fragile areas like the mountains and valleys of Kashmir. We visited one such village which is finding out ways to ease the impact of tourism on such areas.
Be at one with nature is the credo Fayaz Ahmed Dar lives by. All the produce from his garden is organic, in keeping with the name of this eco-village, Sag, which means nurture in Kashmiri. His aim is to establish a local circular economy.
All the farming that you see here is natural. We have our own composting programs. We have a composting program for human waste also, which is functional, which is a rarity in today's development. And then the buildings we have built are again using local materials and traditional cultural design, which was more environment friendly, health friendly.
Fayaz Ahmed Dar set up Sag 10 years ago with some like-minded people. It's located in the Gandarbal district, an area so far spared the mass tourism scene in other parts of Kashmir. The entrepreneur and former farmer incorporated the local population from the outset, with 15 residents now working here.
All the labor that has done the infrastructure work, plus who are running the place, are all local. We don't have road connected to the place. So this is a labor-intensive space. So that has been a significant component. Plus the educational programs we run camps for children.
A situation very different to that in the more picturesque areas of Kashmir. The stunning natural beauty of the Himalayas has also become a curse due to the swarms of visitors descending on the region, around 18 million last year alone. Good news for the tourist industry, but not for nature. The area worst affected is Pahalgam. Every day, tourists leave around 21 tons of litter in the surroundings. With no functioning waste management system, the majority of the trash ends up in forests and rivers, especially plastic. At the same time, there is increasing traffic and construction sites, meaning less intact habitats for flora and fauna. To raise awareness of that environmental destruction, Mushtaq Ahmed pays regular visits to communities with his NGO Himalayan Welfare Trust. For over 10 years now, he and his fellow volunteers have been organizing cleanup campaigns for local forests and rivers.
Today, the theme of our program was the Track for Green Himalayas, for garbage recovery. The tourists who come to these regions, mostly hikers, don't care enough to take the litter with them. Raising awareness means they understand the situation and pass on the information.
But stemming the flow of visitors is easier said than done, as Riaz Qureshi knows. He's a researcher specializing in tourism and sustainability in Kashmir, a real balancing act.
Kashmir is to a great extent dependent on tourism. We don't have industries, we don't have other sectors, but of course the protection of the environment is the big concern, and the immediate measure which can be to minimize the huge rush of the tourists and the deterioration of the fragile ecology and environment, that apart from the traditional tourist destinations, we should develop the basic infrastructure at the secondary tourist destinations, divert the tourists to the countrysides, to the rural areas.
The Sag Eco Village is an example of what is possible. People here respect nature and limit their encroachment to their 1.5 hectares of land, with a maximum of just 60 visitors permitted per day. And those who do come are invited to think about pollution and their general way of life.
So at the core of all these problems that we are seeing, plastic, environmental degradation, afforestation, water levels dropping, or the oceans getting dirty, whatever problem you look at, it's a symptom. It's not the core problem. All of these symptoms will lead you back to the alienation of a human being from its own self and its own environment. What I'm trying to do is to bring this understanding of connectedness and integratedness of that is inherent in nature and in the design of life back to our lifestyle.
To promote and pass on that ideal, the organizers also offer training courses on ecological entrepreneurship and organic farming in the hope of making their eco-village a model for others.
What can you do to help save the environment? Well, even before I start, I'm sure you must have already thought of at least 3 things and would have also thought of how boring they are. Well, what if I told you you could dance? We went to a club in Scotland that is generating electricity on the dance floor.
Here, clubbers help save the environment, one dance move at a time. The SWG3 Club in Glasgow stores partygoers' body heat for reuse, because these days people want things to be more sustainable, even going out.
It makes you feel good, like when you can contribute to helping like the environment and stuff, but you're also doing something you love, like in the process, like clubbing.
The planet is a gift to us, we're not a gift to the planet, and that's what people need to remember.
This system is called body heat, and it turns dance floors into mini power plants. Each person provides some 150 to 450 watts. And since 2022, the club has been using that energy throughout its venue, even during the day. The aim is to cut fossil fuel use to zero.
We're trying to capture and harness the energy created by heat in gigs or clubs, and we're trying to store that and use that to heat and cool spaces around the venue, either at that time or at a later time. And we're doing that so that we can reduce our energy footprint and our electricity consumption, and then remove gas completely from the venue.
Ventilators on the ceiling absorb the warm air from the 3 dance floors. Heat pumps then convey the energy into the yard using a carrier fluid. There, it's stored in 200-meter deep holes to be reused during the day. The innovative system is one of a kind. David Townsend is an entrepreneur in the energy sector, and he spent 3 years developing it.
The heat comes from the boxes in the ceiling all the way to the boreholes in, a minute or less. But the amount of time you can store the heat in the rock is very flexible. So we can put heat in there during the night and take it out during the day, but we can also put lots of heat in there during the summer and take it out in the winter. So we can do multiple different lengths of storage.
But how much CO2 does the system cut? And is it really sustainable?
So heat pumps operate really efficiently. And so you only need a little bit of electrical energy to do a lot of heating, and equally on the cooling side. So by removing the gas boilers from the heating system, we're saving 70 tons of CO2 per year. So the electricity comes from the grid, but the venue has signed up to 100% renewable energy electricity tariff. So the electricity is all coming from renewable sources, which means in Scotland, especially on a rainy day like this, it's coming from wind energy.
Hey, Bob, how you doing?
With a price tag of €700,000, installing body heat isn't cheap. But other clubs are still looking to follow suit.
The beautiful thing about body heat is it invites the customer into that, and they don't need to do anything different. They need to show up and they need to dance and have fun, and they're actively contributing to the reduction of energy in those environments.
This club in Scotland is paving the way and showing that protecting the environment can be a lot of fun. Here, excess is good. The wilder the dancing, the more it helps the planet.
Well, that's something I'm certainly on board with. I mean, who wouldn't be? I'm definitely putting this club on my travel bucket list. But you let me know, what did you like the most about today's episode and what would you like to see more of? You can either email us or reach out to me directly on my Twitter. Please do come back next week. I will see you soon. Until then, take care. Goodbye. Namaskar.